warm good morning to all of you. It's a beautiful Tuesday morning and we're back once again with Breakfast News, a show we get for you every morning to make sure that you keep yourself abreast with everything that's making it to the headlines right in the morning. It's a packed 1 hour ahead. We'll get you national updates, international updates, updates from the world of business, sports, enough to keep you engaged for the next 1 hour. I'm Preeti. With me is Rukma.
And a very good morning to you, Preeti, and to all our viewers as well. And as Preeti just said, it's a packed 1 hour ahead. We'll be taking stock of all that we can expect from the Prime Minister as he dedicates 35 crop varieties with special traits to the nation. Today he will also perhaps be interacting with farmers. His address and there'll be an address as well. We'll be speaking with our reporters on the ground who are covering this story. Also the latest update as far as cyclonic storm Gulab is concerned, vaccination updates and all the other COVID figures that we'll be updating you on all over the next 60 minutes. But first, here are the headlines.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi to dedicate 35 crop varieties with special traits to the nation today. Prime Minister will also dedicate to the nation the newly constructed campus of National Institute of Biotic Stress Tolerance, Raipur. PM will also distribute Green Campus Award to agricultural universities as well as interact with farmers.
Cyclonic storm Gulab loses steam, weakens into a depression. Waterlogging affects normal life in several parts of Andhra Pradesh.
India's cumulative COVID-19 vaccination coverage crosses 87 crore doses. More than 1 crore vaccine doses administered in the last 24 hours.
Report of first quarter of quarterly employment survey released. Estimated total employment in 9 selected sectors from first round is 3 crore 8 lakhs. Show a healthy growth of 29% against the 6th economic census of 2013 to 14.
External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar meets Mexican President in Mexico City, holds discussion with his counterpart Marcelo Ebrard. The minister also attends the Independence Day celebrations in Mexico.
Union Minister for Youth Affairs and Sports Anurag Singh Thakur inaugurates indoor stadium and sports complex in Jammu and Kashmir. Says centre has allocated 200 crore rupees investment to develop sports infrastructure of J&K on modern patterns.
Union Minister of State for Information and Broadcasting L. Murugan elected unopposed to the lone Rajya Sabha seat from Madhya Pradesh. BJP nominee S. Selva Ganapati also elected to the upper house unopposed from Puducherry.
In international news, fuel stations run dry in major cities in UK due to panic buying. Government says it is putting the military on standby as part of further measures to address supply chain crisis.
All right, those are the top stories. Let's get to the news in detail. We'll first get you details of Prime Minister's program today. All right, let's get you more on that when we talk of Prime Minister's engagements today in an endeavour to create mass awareness for adoption of climate-resilient technologies. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will dedicate 35 crop varieties with special traits to the nation today via video conferencing in a pan-India program. The program has been organized at all ICAR institutes, state and central agricultural universities and Krishi Vigyan Kendra. The crop varieties with special traits have been developed by the Indian Council of Agricultural Research to address the twin challenges of climate change and malnutrition. 35 such crop varieties with special traits like climate resilience and higher nutrient content have been developed in the year 2021. During the program, Prime Minister will also dedicate to the nation the newly constructed campus of the National Institute of Biotic Stress Tolerance, Raipur. On the occasion, the Prime Minister will distribute Green Campus Award to agricultural universities. He will also interact with farmers who use innovative methods and address the gathering.
And our correspondent Arun Sharma now joins us with more details about the Prime Minister's program today. Arun, a very good morning to you. Prime Minister Modi dedicating 35 crop varieties. He'll also be interacting with farmers. Take us through the key highlights, the most important points to be noted at this crucial juncture as we emerge from the pandemic, as the government's schemes and campaigns to empower farmers further and further continues apace.
Good morning, Preeti and Rukma. Now, we know this fact that Prime Minister Narendra Modi has given this vision of lab to land primarily, which ensures that how can the biotechnological research can reach the land as well. This does not stay only in lab. So this 35 new varieties of the crops are going to play a significant role, number one, as far as becoming climate resilient. That means this, the crops primarily, will not get wasted easily. Second, and there will not be any kind of major impact of the weather change, of the climate change primarily on these crops. That's number one. Number two, these crops are nutritional in nature. They have greater nutritional value, be it the chickpeas, wheat, millet, maize. So all these crops, primarily 35 variety of crops, are also, nutritional in nature. They have greater nutritional value as well. Now, we know this fact that the focus of the government has been on doubling the farmers' income, and how can the research that has been done in labs can reach the land as well, that means from lab to land. So in that context, this is going to be very much significant because 35 variety of crops will be dedicated to the nation. So very soon the farmers will be in a position to grow these kind of crops as well in their land. And this will, of course, will ensure that how can greater production can be ensured. Number one, there can be less wastage and there can be less impact of climate change or the weather change on these crops. And number three, primarily we'll be getting a nutritional crops going forward because we have seen how 80 crore people were given free of food or ration primarily during the COVID pandemic time under the Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana. So 80 crore people were fed. So how can these nutritional or primary crops can be nutritional in nature? That's number one. And of course, the focus is also on that part that various initiatives like midday meal and whereby, in schools, whereby the food is being distributed to school kids and of course the kids over there. How can they get nutritional food over there going forward? So in that context, there is going to be very significant days, be it the chickpeas, soybeans, wheat, millet, maize. All these variety of crops will be dedicated to the nation, which will be having greater nutritional value. And that is the focus of the government as well. How can the research and lab can reach the land? So yes, indeed, it's going to be a very significant day by Prime Minister Narendra Modi.
All right, Arun, a very important, significant day is what you tell us. 35 special crop varieties to be inaugurated or dedicated today through video conferencing. This will definitely boost the nutritional, scale of the nation. But at the same time, if on one hand prioritizing these 35 crop varieties is important, at the same time, on the other hand, making the common man aware of these the usage or the the benefits of these 35 crop varieties is also very important, because in our country wheat, rice and some dals or some pulses, they are staple. Generally agriculture is associated with these three. Talk more about inaugurating and dedicating the crops is one part. What is being done or how much effort is being made to ensure that the information reaches out to the common man, not only in the urban areas but rural areas also, where malnutrition and nutrition to the masses is indeed a challenge?
Absolutely, Preeti. That's a very important point, because malnutrition is a concern not only for a country like India, but also for various other developing or underdeveloped countries. Now, the focus is that how can, apart from dedicating this 35 variety of crops, how can awareness be created? Government of India is also, undertaking the program called Poshan Maha or Poshan Abhiyan, whereby the focus is on the fact that how can a variety of nutritional value of foods can be provided to the people, and how can awareness be created. Now, there is a fortified rice that has got a greater nutritional value. Now we have seen that how government is ensuring that how can the fortified food or fortified rice primarily can reach to the rural areas in tier 2, tier 3 towns. And of course, the target of the government is to ensure that how can very soon the fortified rice reaches to the common man, to the people who are living in far-flung areas, to the poor people in our country, and awareness be created about these fortified rice as well, because they have greater nutritional value in nature. So that ensures that the children, the mother, of course, they get food that is higher nutritional value in nature. So yes, we have seen it how recently the focus of the government is on the fact how can mother's mortality ratio, the child's mortality ratio can be, it can be ensured that it reduces going forward. And in that context, the nutritional food plays an important role. So when Prime Minister Narendra Modi today dedicates to the nation these 35 variety of the crops, the focus of the government will also be on the fact that how can they are easily available in rural areas, how can awareness be created in the people about the benefits of these 35 variety of crops. Number 3, how can farmers grow more and more variety of such 35 variety of crops so that we can increase our production as well. Number 4, the focus on the fact is that how can a major awareness be created in tier 2 town, in rural areas, in far-flung areas, in villages, so the people to adopt to the 35 variety of crops. So that's the basic idea as well. So when Prime Minister Narendra Modi interacts with the farmers, when Prime Minister Narendra Modi dedicates the 35 variety of the crops, the idea is very much clear, because right from his Chief Minister's day of Gujarat, when he used to be the Chief Minister of Gujarat, at that time also the focus was on the fact that how can lab to land be done. That means the crops that are being grown in the labs primarily, how can they reach to the in the land as well? How can farmers grow that in abundance? That is the main focus of this lab to land initiative. And today, when Prime Minister Narendra Modi dedicates this 35 variety of crops, this focus will be very much clear. How can nutritional value of food can be created, crops can be created so that it reaches the common person, the poor people primarily. So the nutritional value, increased food can reach to them. So be it either be it feeding 80 crore people with free crops primarily, that means wheat and rice or pulses, or be it various initiatives like midday meal or distributing food to schools, school kid primarily. Now it will be ensured that how can nutritional value food can reach the common man when Prime Minister Narendra Modi today, dedicates to the nation 35 variety of the crops.
All right. There's also more on the Prime Minister's agenda, Arun. Today, he'll also be distributing, green awards to and also the Biotic Institute. Tell us more before we sum up.
Absolutely. So, Prime Minister Narendra Modi will also be, dedicating or primarily inaugurating this building in the Raipur. So we have seen that how the focus of the government is on agriculture research, and various agriculture universities are coming up in the nation now. We have seen that how upgradation of various agriculture universities are being seen. The seats and the capacities of various agriculture universities are being increased because there is an increase in the research. People are inclined towards research as far as agriculture research is concerned. So when today Prime Minister Narendra Modi, of course, gives away the award to various universities or colleges, and of course dedicates or inaugurates this new research center of the universities, it will ensure that how can people approach and can go ahead with this agriculture research in our country, and how can seats be increased. So yes, a conducive environment can be provided. On one side, research can be done, and a lab to under the lab to lab land concept, the research that is being done in these universities or colleges can reach the land as well. So yes, a conducive environment is going to be made after this initiative by Prime Minister Narendra Modi.
All right, Arun, thank you so much for joining in with those inputs. We'll come back to you again when the program begins at 11. Thank you for joining in with your inputs. And that was our correspondent Arun Sharma telling us more about Prime Minister's program today, where he will be dedicating to the nation 35 crop varieties with special traits. We'll keep you updated, but at present, let's head for a short commercial break. We'll be back in a short while. Stay with us.
हमारे इंडस्ट्री पर देश के विश्वास का ही नतीजा है कि आज ईज ऑफ डूइंग बिजनेस बढ़ रहा है और ईज ऑफ लिविंग में इजाफा हो रहा है। कंपनीज एक्ट में किए गए बदलाव इसका बहुत बड़ा उदाहरण है। जिस भारत में दस्तावेजों में, कागजों में, कानूनों में उलझाना ब्यूरोक्रेसी की पहचान माना जाता था, वहीं आज ईज ऑफ डूइंग बिजनेस रैंक में बड़ी छलांग लगा रहा है।
Welcome back after the break. You're watching Breakfast Show on DD India.
And now moving on to news about Cyclone Gulab, the depression remnant of Cyclone Gulab over North Telangana and adjoining Vidarbha moved west-northwestwards with a speed of 24 kilometers per hour in the last 6 hours and lay centered at 5:30 hours Indian Standard Time of 28th September 2021 over Telangana and adjoining areas of Marathwada and Vidarbha, about 25 kilometers northwest of Nizamabad in Telangana and 260 kilometers southeast of Nagpur, Vidarbha. It is likely to move west-northwestwards and weaken into a well-marked low-pressure area. In the next 6 hours, the system is likely to emerge into Northeast Arabian Sea and adjoining Gujarat coast around 30th September evening. And there is likelihood for the system to further intensify over Northeast Arabian Sea during the subsequent 24 hours.
India's cumulative COVID vaccination coverage has crossed 87 crore doses. More than 1 crore vaccine doses were administered in the last 24 hours. In fact, Union Health Minister Mansukh Mandavia in a tweet said, and I quote, "Congratulations to the nation as we administer another 1 crore vaccine doses under Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji. India delivers a punch to COVID record of 1+ crore vaccines achieved for the 5th time."
And Union Labour and Employment Minister Bhupendra Yadav released the report of the first quarter of the Quarterly Employment Survey, part April to June 2021, of the All India Quarterly Establishment-Based Employment Survey prepared by the Labour Bureau on Monday. Key highlights of the first round of Quarterly Employment Survey are: the most impressive growth of 152% has been recorded in the IT BPO sector, while growth rates in health are 77%, in education 39%, in manufacturing 22%, in transport 68% and in construction 42%. Nearly 90% of the establishments have been estimated to work with less than 100 workers. The overall participation of female workers stands at 29%, slightly lower than 31% reported during the 6th EC. Regular workers constitute 88% of the estimated workforce in the 9 selected sectors, with only 2% being casual workers. Only 9% of the establishments with at least 10 workers were not registered with any authority or under any act, while 26% of all the establishments were registered under the Companies Act. Around 18% of the establishments have provision of on-job skill training programs.
Union Minister for Information and Broadcasting and Youth Affairs and Sports, Anurag Singh Thakur, has said that the centre has allocated rupees 200 crore investment to develop sports infrastructure of Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir on modern pattern, and that there will be one highly equipped indoor stadium in each district of Jammu and Kashmir. Now, these remarks were made by him while addressing a gathering of sportspersons, players, members of PRIs, DDCs, BDCs and also students at Budgam as part of the Union government's public outreach program. The minister also inaugurated 3 highly equipped indoor stadiums in Budgam, Pulwama and Anantnag. Now the sports facilities in these stadiums will run 365 days without getting affected by weather or other disruptions.
आप कल्पना कीजिए जब 22 इंडोर स्टेडियम आपके पास नए बनकर ऐसे तैयार हो जाएंगे, आउटडोर फील्ड्स आपके पास तैयार होंगे, 200 करोड़ रुपए की लागत से आपका इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर खड़ा हो जाएगा। इसके अलावा 290 करोड़ का और इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर बनकर तैयार होगा, तो खिलाड़ियों के पास खेलों की कमी नहीं होगी, खेल सुविधाओं की कमी नहीं होगी।
And Minister of State for Information and Broadcasting L. Murugan has been elected Rajya Sabha member from Madhya Pradesh. On his election, he expressed gratitude to Prime Minister Narendra Modi, BJP President JP Nadda and Madhya Pradesh team of BJP.
प्रधानमंत्री श्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी की, गृह मिनिस्टर श्री अमित शाह जी, भारतीय जनता पार्टी राष्ट्रीय अध्यक्ष श्री नड्डा जी, and I extend my heartfelt thanks to the whole Madhya Pradesh team.
BJP nominee S. Selva Ganapathy has also been elected to the upper house unopposed from Puducherry.
And women can now take the NDA exam and qualify for the course at the National Defence Academy and the Indian Naval Academy this year. Nandita Dagar reports.
The UPSC has issued a new notification on Friday for NDA and INA exams this year. Now women can apply for the NDA exam on 14th of November. Earlier this exam was scheduled for 5th September but was postponed. In a historic move, the centre had told the Supreme Court earlier this month that women will be admitted into the National Defence Academy or NDA for permanent commission into India's armed forces. The government had asked for some time to frame guidelines to pave the way for women to take NDA courses. The centre last week had sought exemption for this year's admission. It had said that women can take the entrance exam in April to May next year to join NDA in January 2023. But the Supreme Court directed that the exams be held this year so that women may join the NDA next year. Prime Minister Narendra Modi had announced from the Red Fort the opening of Sainik schools in every state for girls in his Independence Day address this year.
मुझे लाखों बेटियों के संदेश मिलते थे कि वो भी सैनिक स्कूल में पढ़ना चाहती हैं। उनके लिए भी सैनिक स्कूलों के दरवाजे खोले जाएं। 2-2.5 साल पहले मिजोरम के सैनिक स्कूल में पहली बार बेटियों को प्रवेश देने का हमने एक छोटा सा प्रयोग प्रारंभ किया था। अब सरकार ने तय किया है कि देश के सभी सैनिक स्कूलों को देश की बेटियों के लिए भी खोल दिया जाएगा। देश के सभी सैनिक स्कूलों में अब बेटियां भी पढ़ेगी।
The NDA is only one of the various modes of entries for recruitment in the armed forces. The opening of NDA for women candidates will require creating infrastructure, new guidelines, etc. The Modi government is committed to empowering women, and in 2018, the Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi, had announced that the government will be offering permanent commission to women just like their male counterparts in Army, Navy and Air Force. In New Delhi, this is Nandita Dagar for DD News.
External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar took part in the commemorative events of the 200th anniversary of Mexican independence along with other world leaders. Dr. S. Jaishankar met Bangladeshi MOS for Foreign Affairs Mohammad Shahryar Alam at the Independence Day celebrations in Mexico City. Dr. S. Jaishankar also met Prime Minister of Belize, Johnny Briceno. He also appreciated Belize Prime Minister's warm words on vaccine Met3. External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar also met his Mexican counterpart Marcelo Ebrard on Monday. Both the leaders held comprehensive discussions. They reviewed political cooperation, trade and investment, space and scientific potential, cultural exchanges and also consular issues. They also shared perspectives on governance challenges and global narratives. Taking to Twitter, External Affairs Minister said, and I quote him, "As independent powers committed to a multipolar world, India and Mexico must collaborate more closely in the international forums. Glad to note our Mexican partners reciprocating this sentiment." External Affairs Minister also attended the Grandeur of Mexico exhibition on the return of heritage. He met the Mexican President Andrés Manuel and also Foreign Minister of Mexico Marcelo Ebrard C. at the Grandeur of Mexico exhibition. He also met the First Lady at the exhibition. Dr. S. Jaishankar tweeted, and I quote him, Delighted to meet First Lady Tamara Vučić of Serbia and my good friend Nikola Selakovic. Glad to learn that the First Lady is an enthusiastic and ardent practitioner of yoga. The minister also paid homage to Mahatma Gandhi in Mexico City. He said that this was appropriate on the occasion of the anniversary of the Mexican independence.
And time to take a look at what's making headlines around the world in our next segment, Across the Globe.
A sharply divided U.S. Senate failed on Monday to advance a measure to suspend the federal debt ceiling and avoid a partial government shutdown. The Republican lawmakers denied the bill the votes necessary to move forward. Now, the legislation by President Joe Biden's Democrats was aimed at beating two fast-approaching deadlines that, if left unaddressed, threaten to destabilize the U.S. economy as it struggles to emerge from the COVID pandemic. The near party line vote of 48 votes to advance against 50 opposed fell short of the 60 votes needed to push the bill ahead in the 100-seat Senate. Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer voted no to allow him to call another vote.
And North Korea fired an unidentified projectile towards the sea off its east coast early this morning, less than 2 weeks after it tested a new railway-borne missile system as per South Korea's military, without giving any more details. The announcement came as North Korea's ambassador to the United Nations called on Monday for the United States to give up its hostile policy towards Pyongyang and said no one could deny his country's right to self-defense and to test weapons. On September 15, North Korea fired a new railway-borne missile system designed as a potential counter-strike to any threatening forces.
Meanwhile, North Korea's ambassador to the United Nations called on Monday for the United States to give up its hostile policy towards Pyongyang and also said that no one could deny his country's right to self-defense and to test weapons. Just before the envoy, Kim Song made the comments in an address to the annual UNGA. South Korea's military said that North Korea fired an unidentified projectile towards the sea off its east coast. Japan's defense ministry said the launch could have been of a ballistic missile. Kim and North Korea would never violate or endanger the security of the United States, South Korea and the neighboring countries. Referring to a call last week at the United Nations by South Korean President Moon Jae-in for an official end to the 1950-53 Korean War, Kim said that if Washington wanted this, it should permanently stop joint military exercises with South Korea and the deployment of strategic weapons on and around the peninsula.
Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett addressed the United Nations General Assembly for the first time barely 100 days after he was sworn in and ended Benjamin Netanyahu's more than decade-long premiership. Bennett warned the Assembly that two problems, the coronavirus and the political polarization, were challenging the very fabric of society at this moment and have the ability to paralyze nations. Israel, Bennett said, had rejected polarization by forming the government he leads. Bennett, who ended Benjamin Netanyahu's 12-year run as Prime Minister in June, wants US President Joe Biden to harden his stance against Iran, Israel's regional arch-foe. He opposes US efforts to revive the 2015 Iran nuclear deal that Biden's predecessor Donald Trump abandoned in 2018. Indirect US-Iran talks in Vienna have stalled as Washington awaits the next move by Iran's new hardline president, Ebrahim Raisi.
And up next, let's take an update on Camberweisha volcano eruption. The situation at the spot has worsened further. Lava dramatically spewed from the volcano on Monday as night fell on the Spanish island. The volcano began ejecting lava again earlier on Monday, while hundreds of people in coastal villages hunkered down in anticipation of lava emitted in previous days reaching the sea and releasing toxic gas. Spurts of vivid lava emerged from the volcano in early evening and snaked down the dark mountainside after a period of several hours without explosions. The hiatus and new explosions come 8 days after lava started pouring from the mountain range on the island, which neighbors Tenerife in the Canary Islands. The volcano has destroyed more than 350 houses and thousands have been evacuated from the site of the eruption as of now.
And the 26th session of the Conference of Parties, COP26, meant to spur countries to make bigger commitments to slash greenhouse gas emissions, is due to start in Glasgow on the 31st of October. Hundreds of environmental protesters worldwide are once again demanding urgent action to avert disastrous climate change. Meanwhile, Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison refused to commit to phasing out fossil fuels as the major climate conference approaches. A report.
Young people around the world are once again demanding urgent action to avert disastrous climate change, and the protests are increasing in influence and size with each passing day. Hundreds of environmental protesters marched in the Ukrainian capital Kiev, while many blocked the M25 busy orbital motorway in United Kingdom's London to demand increased actions from their governments to battle climate change. The worldwide strikes come 5 weeks before the UN COP26 summit in Glasgow, Scotland, which aims to secure more ambitious climate action from world leaders to drastically cut the greenhouse gas emissions heating the planet. Protesters in Kiev on Sunday called on authorities to increase state funding for measures to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, adapt to climate change, and other environmental measures. I joined the march because for me the environment and preserving the climate is very important, and I want my children, my descendants, the next generations to have an environment where they will live in safety, in good conditions. I want to keep it for them, for the next generations. Elsewhere in London's busy M25 orbital motorway, climate change protesters once again blocked the highway on Monday in defiance of a court injunction against the demonstrations that the government had sought to prevent disruption. Activist group Insulate Britain has repeatedly blocked the motorway and also targeted the port of Dover on Friday, leading the government to seek a further court order. The group said that injunctions, which mean protesters may face jail time for repeating the protests, would not deter them. Meanwhile, in a blow to fight climate change, Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison refused to commit to phasing out fossil fuels, while his deputy doubled down on opposing targets for net zero emissions of greenhouse gases. A UN climate panel said in a landmark report in August that global warming is dangerously close to spiraling out of control, warning that the world is already certain to face further climate disruptions for decades to come. All eyes are now on COP26. The world's poorest countries may struggle to meet visa requirements and cover all COVID-19 quarantine costs for the summit, raising concerns that some might not be able to attend in person. The UN conference, which is meant to spur countries to make bigger commitments to slash greenhouse gas emissions, is due to start in Glasgow on October 31st. Bureau Report, DD India.
Fuel stations run dry in major cities in the United Kingdom due to panic buying. Up to 90% of the British fuel stations ran dry after panic buying deepened a supply chain crisis. A dire post-Brexit shortage of lorry drivers emerging after the COVID pandemic has sown chaos through British supply chains in everything from food to fuel, raising the spectre of disruptions and price rise in the run-up to Christmas. Meanwhile, the Britain government is putting a military on standby as part of further measures to address the supply chain crisis. The UK minister said that Ministry of Defence trainers were being drafted in to help clear a backlog of heavy good vehicle tests.
Well, we are bringing MOD trainers in to accelerate some of the HGV training. To clear a backlog of people who want to carry out those tests. So there's definitely a role there for the MOD, and we're doing that. In terms of other things, we've no plans at the moment to bring in the Army to actually do driving, but we always have a civil contingencies section within the Army that's always on standby should they be needed, but we don't judge that's necessary at the moment.
The UK minister said that conditions needed to be improved for long-distance truck drivers. He has asked people in Britain to buy petrol as usual. He added that problems were being caused by consumers panic buying fuel they did not actually need.
Well, we can only continue to reassure people that we have plenty of petrol, both in storage, coming out of those refineries as well. And the only reason that we have an issue at the moment with some petrol stations not having petrol in forecourts is that people are buying petrol and they wouldn't. The most important thing everyone can do is just get back to normal, fill their cars up as they normally would, and not buy petrol unless they need it.
The United States and Singapore have pledged to work together on a wide range of bilateral issues, including climate change, pandemic preparedness, space and supply chain resilience. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken and Singapore Foreign Minister Vivian Balakrishnan held a meeting on Monday and renewed the Singapore-U.S. Third Country Training Program. Memorandum of Understanding. The two allies expanded the agreement to include new courses on climate change and environmental sustainability. They pledged to work to expand collaboration on smart cities and cybersecurity with an eye towards both the financial and military sectors. The United States and Singapore are also exploring areas to expand bilateral cooperation in space. Earlier this month, Vice President Kamala Harris visited Singapore, laying the groundwork to bolster economic and security ties with Singapore and other key allies.
Up next, we take a look at updates on COVID situation from across the world. The global COVID case tally has crossed 23 crore mark. With over 23 crore 30 lakh cases of COVID that have been reported so far, more than 20 crore 97 lakh recoveries have also been reported, while over 47 lakh 68,000 lives have been lost due to the virus globally. The United States remains the worst hit nation. So far, over 4 crore 39 lakh cases have been reported across the US. The death toll in the states has surpassed 7 lakh, with more than 7 lakh 7,000 people having lost their lives to the virus.
US President Joe Biden rolled up his shirt sleeves for a COVID-19 vaccine booster shot on Monday, hoping to present a powerful example for Americans on the need to get the extra shot. In getting the booster, Biden dismissed criticism that the US should distribute more vaccines worldwide before allowing boosters at home. US President Joe Biden and Americans over 65, as well as those with underlying health conditions, are now eligible for a third jab of the Pfizer vaccine after US authorities had approved it. The US Centers for Disease Control and Prevention last week backed an additional dose of the Pfizer Inc. BioNTech vaccine for Americans aged 65 and older, adults with underlying medical conditions, and adults in high-risk working and institutional settings.
New York hospitals are preparing to fire thousands of healthcare workers for not complying with the COVID vaccine mandate, taking effect on Monday, with some in the upstate region curtailing services to cope up with the staffing shortage. The Erie County Medical Center has been suspended. Rather, it has suspended elective inpatient surgeries and will not accept intensive care patients from other hospitals as it prepares to fire hundreds of unvaccinated employees. New York Governor Kathy Hochul has said that she considers employing the National Guard and out-of-state medical workers to fill likely staffing shortages, with 60% of the state's 450,000 hospital staff not fully vaccinated. The inoculation push comes amidst a broader battle between state and federal government leaders seeking to use vaccine mandates to help counter the highly infectious Delta variant of the virus, and the workers who are against such requirements, many claiming religious grounds for their objections.
And in continuation of our recollection of great stories of independence, we celebrate the birth anniversary of Shahid Bhagat Singh, who was born today in the year 1907. Also on this day, Mughal King Bahadur Shah Zafar ascended the throne at the age of 62. Let's take a look at what the upcoming episode has for us.
Today is the birth anniversary of Shahid Bhagat Singh. Bhagat Singh was born on 27th of September 1907 to a Sikh family in Punjab. At the time of his birth, his father Kishan Singh was in jail for fighting against the British rulers.
His father was a follower of Mahatma Gandhi, and after Gandhi ji called for boycotting government-aided institutions, Singh left school and enrolled in the National College at Lahore, where he studied European revolutionary movements. Bhagat Singh's parents tried to get him married. Bhagat Singh said that, "If I married in slave India, my bride shall only be death."
He left home for Kanpur and joined Hindustan Socialist Republican Association. In 1926, Bhagat Singh founded the Naujawan Bharat Sabha, and a year later, and in May 1927, he was arrested for allegedly being involved in the Kakori conspiracy. He was released several weeks later and began to write for various revolutionary newspapers.
In 1928, Lala Lajpat Rai had led a procession to protest against the arrival of the Simon Commission. The police resorted to a brutal lathi charge in which Lala Lajpat Rai was severely injured and later succumbed to his injuries. To take revenge for the death of Lala Lajpat Rai, Bhagat Singh and his associates plotted the assassination of James A. Scott, the then superintendent of police. However, the revolutionaries mistakenly killed J.P. Saunders. The incident is famously known as the Lahore Conspiracy Case of 1929.
In April 1929, Bhagat Singh and an associate bombed the Central Legislative Assembly in Delhi to protest implementation of the Public Safety Bill. The bombs they carried allegedly were not intended to kill, but to scare, and in fact, no one was killed, though there were some injuries. The bombers planned to get arrested and stand trial so they could further promote their cause.
However, Bhagat Singh was rearrested for the Mumbai case. While awaiting trial, he led a hunger strike in prison. He was found guilty in this case and was hanged on the 23rd of March 1931 in Lahore along with Sukhdev and Rajguru.
ऐ वतन हमको तेरी कसम तेरी राहों में जहाँ तक लुटा जाएंगे भूल क्या चीज है तेरे कदमों पे हम भेंट अपने सरों की चढ़ा जाएंगे.
Every year, 23rd of March is observed as Martyrs' Day as a tribute to freedom fighters Bhagat Singh, Sukhdev and Rajguru. And it was on this day in 1837, the last Mughal king, Bahadur Shah Zafar, ascended the throne at the age of 62.
Bahadur Shah was a poet and an artist. By the time Bahadur Shah ascended the throne, the area under Mughal rule had reduced to Delhi only. Bahadur Shah was also known to be a tolerant and peace-abiding ruler, and his religious neutrality is also said to be a reason the sepoys of 1857 revolt declared him as their king upon reaching Delhi from Meerut in 1857.
The outbreak of the 1857 revolt in Delhi culminated when on 19th of September 1857, Red Fort was captured by the British. 2 days later, on 21st of September, Bahadur Shah and his family members were arrested by the British. When he was captured by the British, he belted out his shairi to a British officer.
हिंदियों में बू रहेगी जब तलक ईमान की तख्त लंदन तक चलेगी तैर हिंदुस्तान की.
2 sons of the king and his grandson were shot dead in public by Hodgson at a location today known as Huni Darwaza near the Delhi Gate.
On the 27th of January 1858, in Red Fort, the trial of Bahadur Shah Zafar began on the charges of rebellion, treason and murder.
Zafar was convicted and exiled to Rangoon, where he breathed his last on 7th of November 1862 at the age of 83.
उम्रे दराज मांग के लाए थे 4 दिन, 2 आरज़ू में कट गए 2 इंतजार में, दिन जिंदगी खत्म हुए, शाम हो गई, फैला के पाँव सोएंगे कुंजे मज़ार में। कितना है बदनसीब ज़फ़र दफन के लिए, 2 गज़ ज़मीं भी न मिली हुए यार में।
न किसी की आँख का नूर हूँ, न किसी के दिल का करार हूँ।
All right, up next we get you all the business news in BizBuzz. Let's take a look at US stocks first. The Wall Street ended mixed on Monday as investors began the last week of September and the quarter with a pivot to value as tech shares hurt by rising treasury yields weighed on the Nasdaq Composite Index. The Dow Jones Industrial Average rose 72.95 points to 34,870.95. S&P 500 lost 12.27 points to 4,443.21. And the Nasdaq Composite dropped 75.77 points to 14,971.93.
And time to take stock of what's trending on the World Wide Web in our next segment, the Web News Review.
All right, to get us the Web News Review today, Abhishek is joining us. Abhishek, good morning. Let us know what all top stories have you picked up for us from the social media platforms. All right, there is we could not establish connection with Abhishek there, but very quickly let's get you through the headlines which have been put forth in the Web News Review. Maharashtra records lowest daily new COVID cases since February 8th, and this is also the result of the record vaccination drive which crossed 87 crore and which shows that the fight against pandemic is going strong.
The next slide is from the Times of India. The story talks about cyclone Gulab, saying it may be reborn as Shaheen after moving across the Arabian Sea. And it says here it's a rare weather event, and cyclone Gulab came across the Bay of Bengal and settled into a deep depression on Sunday, could be reborn as cyclone Shaheen on Thursday evening as it moves onwards. The next slide is from the Business Standard.
Yes, the government intends to complete BPCL disinvestment by March end, says the company chairman.
And time for some sports news now. In our next segment, Sports Track. Well, Delhi Capitals and Kolkata Knight Riders will clash in the 41st match of the IPL today. Kolkata Knight Riders have performed extremely well in the second phase. KKR have won 2 of the last 3 matches, in which they also suffered a close defeat in the match against Chennai Super Kings. KKR's team are in the 4th position with 8 points from 10 matches. KKR will remain in the top 4 if they win the match. Delhi Capitals are just 1 win away from cementing their place in the playoffs. The Delhi team has won 3 consecutive matches in the second leg of the ongoing league in the UAE and are currently positioned at the 2nd spot with 16 points. In the second match today, Mumbai Indians will face off with Punjab Kings. Mumbai Indians will have to win this match in order to qualify for the playoffs, and their team has had to face defeat in all the 3 matches played so far in the second leg. Batsmen of the 5-time champions Mumbai team have disappointed so far. Punjab Kings are positioned in the 5th spot. After defeating Sunrisers Hyderabad in the last match, Punjab Kings showcased excellent performance of bowlers and won 8 points from 10 matches.
Sunrisers Hyderabad defeated Rajasthan Royals by 7 wickets at Dubai International Cricket Stadium last night. Chasing the target of 165 runs, Sunrisers made 167 runs for the loss of 3 wickets with the help of 60 by Jason Roy and 51 not out by skipper Kane Williamson. Jason Roy was named player of the match. Earlier, Rajasthan Royals put up 164 runs in the stipulated 20 overs with heroics of skipper Sanju Samson, who scored 82 runs. For Sunrisers Hyderabad, Siddharth Kaul picked up 2 wickets, while Sandeep Sharma, Bhuvaneshwar Kumar and Rashid Khan bagged a wicket each. Now, this was the second win of the season for Kane Williamson-led Hyderabad side, but they are still at the bottom of the points table. Rajasthan are at the 6th spot in the points table, and they have 4 more games left in their campaign. And in order to qualify for the playoffs, they need to do well in all the games.
And competing without its star players, the Indian badminton team's chances to qualify for the knockout stage of the Sudirman Cup ended after they suffered a 0-5 defeat against China on Monday. It was India's second consecutive defeat as they lost the Group A opener to Thailand, and now the final match against Finland on Wednesday has been rendered inconsequential.
The UEFA has nullified disciplinary action against breakaway European Super League clubs Real Madrid, Barcelona and Juventus after a Madrid court ruled that European football's governing body should not sanction the rebel clubs. UEFA had opened a probe against 3 clubs, but in June it suspended proceedings after being notified by Swiss authorities of a court order from the commercial court in Madrid. The latest step from UEFA was to declare that the proceedings were nullified following the stay of proceedings against FC Barcelona, Juventus FC and Real Madrid CF in the matter related to a potential violation of UEFA's legal framework in connection with the so-called Super League. The UEFA appeals body has declared that the proceedings null and void, as if the proceedings have never been opened. Juventus, Barcelona and Real are the last of the 12 clubs who signed up to the ESL in April not to have distanced themselves from the breakaway project which unravelled when all 6 English clubs plus Inter Milan, AC Milan and Atletico Madrid withdrew.
England all-rounder Moeen Ali has decided to retire from Test cricket. This was stated in a release by the England and Wales Cricket Board. Ali is currently playing in the Indian Premier League 2021 with the Chennai Super Kings. The 34-year-old said that he is happy and content with what he had achieved in the longest format of the game. Ali has represented England in 64 tests, scoring 2,914 runs at an average of 28.29. The left-handed batsman has 5 centuries and 14 half-centuries in the longest format.
And now for all the James Bond lovers out there, the film No Time to Die finally begins its cinema rollout this week after an 18-month delay. Take a look at the trailer and what the stars have to say.
After an 18-month delay, James Bond film No Time to Die finally begins its cinema rollout this week, a relief for its stars and movie theatre operators. Daniel Craig returns for the 5th final outing as the suave British secret agent known for his love of fast cars and cool gadgets. The movie was originally scheduled to debut in April 2020 before the COVID-19 pandemic forced cinemas to close and impose restrictions on audience numbers. And the movie makers and its stars are simply excited for the release.
No, I've seen it, but I mean, it's amazing. So Lashana's going to see it in the Albert Hall for the first time. That's just going to be amazing.
Yeah.
With an audience. I mean, that's the difference. Is I've seen it sitting in a screening room on my own, and it looks and sounds amazing. I think the movie's good.
So do I.
But we won't know till an audience sees it, and so the first time is going to be, Tuesday night. So that's going to be really exciting.
Very exciting.
Costing an estimated $200 million to produce, No Time to Die, the 25th Bond film has been delayed 3 times since the start of the pandemic. Despite this, its producers have held out to make sure that it is released in cinemas only. Bond films are one of Hollywood's most valuable franchises, with the last two, 2015 Spectre grossing $880 million and 2012 Skyfall making more than $1 billion globally. On Tuesday, Craig will lead co-stars Lashana Lynch, Leah Seydoux and Rami Malek at the movie's world premiere in London. The film is also special for Craig because it is his last Bond film. Well, as normalcy post-pandemic returns, the title, No Time to Die, makes a lot of sense after all. Bureau Report, DD India.
The visually impaired face many hurdles, often unable to work or perform day-to-day tasks. As a ray of hope in their lives, a technology developed by a French company has come up with a solution so that life becomes less difficult for them. It's an electronic device and it's called Rango. It fits onto a cane and uses sensors to spot an obstacle while they walk on the path and gives them the information they need to go around it. The device beeps and sends messages to prevent people from bumping into things and is designed to work out the user's trajectory and lets them know about obstacles directly on their path. If the obstacle is ahead of them but to the right, the alarm will sound in their right ear, letting them know they need to take a detour to the left. Today, the device is being used by nearly 400 people in France, with a handful of models in use in Switzerland, Germany, Belgium and Italy.
And up next, we take a look at the weather forecast. Now, as per the weather report, the depression over North Telangana and adjoining Vidarbha moved northwestwards. And also, the cyclonic circulation over East Central and adjoining Northeast Bay of Bengal off Myanmar coast lies over Northeast and adjoining East Central Bay of Bengal. And because of this, low pressure area is likely to form over Northwest Bay of Bengal, off West Bengal and adjoining Bangladesh coast during the next 12 hours. And also, monsoon trough lies to the south of its normal position and is likely to remain so during the next 4 to 5 days. And because of this, heavy to very heavy rainfall is expected over Gujarat, Madhya Maharashtra and Konkan, and also isolated places over Marathwada, Saurashtra and Kutch. And heavy to heavy rainfall is likely over Gujarat region and Konkan, and also Puducherry, Odisha, Tamil Nadu, Karaikal, Gangetrik, West Bengal, Jharkhand as well. And now we take a look at temperatures across major cities of the country. Alright, that's it in this edition of Breakfast News. But before we go, we again remind you to keep up the fight against the pandemic. Wear a mask, wear it correctly and properly. Keep following COVID appropriate behavior, and all those eligible, please go and get yourself vaccinated. And this will further give a thrust to the fight against the pandemic.
Well, very well said, Preeti. And so viewers, do remember those COVID rules that continue to apply. And as we go, we leave you with these visuals of a very special football match played at the TRC Stadium in Srinagar. Well, there were dazzling lights, infectious energy and an atmosphere filled with good vibes. The football match gave all reasons to smile and cheer to the audience watching, among whom was Union Minister for Information and Broadcasting and Youth Affairs and Sports, Anurag Singh Thakur, on the last leg of his Kashmir tour. So take a look at these visuals and enjoy. Have a great day. Namaskar.
Bye-bye.